The Silver Bullet Podcast with your host, CUPW shop steward and letter carrier, Pirate Jim.
My daddy was a miner and I'm a miner's son, and I'll stick with the Union till every battle's won.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Welcome to the Silver Bullet Podcast, Season 3, Episode 3. The people united will never be defeated.
Hi everyone, I'm Jim Samuelson, your NDP candidate for the federal election here in Calgary Crowfoot. I'm out here today. Look at the beautiful mountains behind me. Look at that. Anyway, I'm out here just collecting up my last little signatures, and it's just come down that the writ has been dropped. So today I'm talking to conservatives. I'm on my block here. I got nothing but conservatives. Looks like one of my. I also am a mailman, and this is my route. So I'm kind of doing my job today. Folks, things aren't going so well. Prices are high. Wages are low. We have a housing crisis. We can't afford to buy the houses we're building. What are we going to do? Well, that's why I've joined the NDP party, the Workers' Party. I'm a letter carrier. I've been a letter carrier with Canada Post for 11 years. I'm a shop steward, and I stood on the line for 32 days to fight for workers' rights, to fight for better wages, and to fight so that a worker can qualify for a mortgage. Our salaries are here. The prices are going up. We can't afford anything if our wages don't increase. So I'm going to take my fight for workers to Parliament, to stand in the House of Commons and to stand up for workers. We need a living wage. So vote for me, Jim Samuelson, for Calgary Crowfoot.
With gratitude, mutual respect, and reciprocity, we acknowledge the ancestral home, culture, and oral teachings of the Treaty 7 signatories, which includes the Siksika Nation, Piikani Nation, Kainai Nation, the Ayithka Stoney Nakoda Nation, consisting of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Good Stoney bands, and the people of the Tsuut'ina Nation. We also recognize the Métis people of Alberta Region 3, who call Treaty 7 their home. We respect all people who share, celebrate, and care for the Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta, and we honor the original caretakers of the land.
Longer.
One day stronger.
One day 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 longer.
One day stronger.
Aloha kako! Hello everyone! Welcome to the show! Woo! Surprise! Guess what? We're now a video podcast. Can you believe it? So that's pretty exciting. You'll get to see my facial expressions now behind the camera. So this is episode 3, and today is all about our campaign, our hands off our post office campaign, and of course the election. You might have already seen that was my writ drop video you just watched, and I released that the day that Mr. Carney called the election. And I'm just realizing I'm looking at the camera here and then looking down here, so I guess I should be looking here even though the camera's up here. So sorry about not looking you in the eyes. That's how it goes, I guess. So we're going to talk a lot about politics and how it relates to what we're going through in the labor movement. And this is officially also, I'm releasing this podcast to have material that is for everyone, not just for letter carriers and RSMCs. And, well, I wish I could have more stuff on inside workers, but man, there's so much. And because I'm not inside every day, I don't understand or how all the different jobs, what they do and how it all circulates and how you do you rotate and such. So I'm not really sure about all that stuff. So I haven't talked about that, but we're going to talk more in the coming months, coming episodes, more about politics and the labor movement that's outside of our union. But I won't forget us. CUPW, there'll still be a big focus on us. All right, well, I think that's about it. I don't know, sit back, relax. Maybe I'll come up with some new stuff by the end of the show that I haven't thought of yet. So, maybe there'll be maybe there'll be some surprises. So we'll see what happens. Surprises. This is actually clapping. I remember doing this a lot on Zoom during the COVID lockdowns. But okay, let's get going. It's time for update.
It's Weekend Update with
Pirate Jim at Pirate Jim. So first on our updates, we're going to go with the last bulletin instead of kind of going back to the last episode and where we've been from there, because there was a one or two since the commission dates were basically 4 days where they've all got together and pleaded their cases in front of the commissioner, Mr. Kaplan. And the meetings in March were canceled because he had heard enough, supposedly. So I'm really curious to see what happens. So we're waiting for May 15th. So let me get to that. May 15th. That's when the final report is due from Mr. Kaplan. And he will give the minister, just one minister, Steve McKinnon. And I haven't fully gone into this yet, but when Carney took over, I believe he got rid of the labor ministry. And I'll get you those details later. My tie is not straight. And I'm a little loosey-goosey here, but I am wearing a tie. And it's orange for a reason. So what this could be, this report, while it's supposed to resolve the issues in the bargaining, this may include recommendations about the structure and operation of Canada Post, and we made our position very clear that these types of questions must only be dealt with in a full public mandate review. And that brings me to something that reminds me. We used to be able to online watch the first 3 days of the hearings, but guess what? They made it so you can only watch it for 60 days. I wish I would have realized that, because I would have got a show done within that time period. So in other words, I can't go and do the breaking down the bullshit for the first 3 days. But they still have the 4th day up, so I'm going to be working on that real quick before. I think I got 2 days until they take it down. And the last day was kind of interesting. Oh, right. The end of the last day, there was a document that the CUPW brought out that caused a big kerfuffle for a while. I think everything kind of got shut down. I don't know. I was listening to all of it, and I had to go to a shop steward meeting. And at the shop steward meeting, we were watching it, and I had gotten there just when this had happened, and all the sound had gone off, and they turned the sound off in the room that we're in. And I don't know what happened, but there was some document brought out that I guess, I don't know. It's a mystery. We'll find out. Anyhow, so that's May 15th. And then, this is the part that's kind of scary, is that our collective agreement that was extended is going to end on May 22nd. So what does that mean? None of us know. But we'll be discussing that a little bit here with Brom. There's lots of rumors out there that, well, if we go on strike, do we have to do a strike vote again? And if we have to do a strike vote again, will we have the capacity to go on strike? Will the boss just lock us out, and for how long? That's what we got to figure out. So when I'm looking up there, am I looking at you? Because that's the camera. And I'm looking at you. So when I'm looking up here, anyway, I guess I'll figure it out. When I'm looking up here, you get to see all the facial expressions I do behind the mic now. That's kind of cool. Maybe. I don't know. Anyhow. So, we're committed as a union here to reaching a settlement And I just wish the boss would stop playing their way or the highway. The union's priority remains returning to the bargain table to secure a new collective agreement for both the RSMC and the urban units. Canada Post recently sent customers a message about the Industrial Inquiry Commission and a possible labor disruption in May. And yes, one of the other letter carriers I work with, his wife works for TD Bank, and this was like 2 months ago, back in January even, I think. They were sending out emails to banks telling them that we're going on strike in May. Anyway, and now I just saw one for Perlator. No, what it was they sent out something to all their customers that did parcels. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And they're getting rid of all of their customers. It's easy. They're just telling the parcel guys to go and use Perlator, and they're killing us. So I just wish they would use these profits from Perlator to help us out. And I know there's probably issues with that, but it's better than the government bailing us out, don't you think? Oh yeah, that's another thing too. During these hearings, the government just magically gave Canada Post some money. So I don't know. There was some beeping there. Hope you didn't hear it. Now, we urge Canada Post to drop demands that will hurt postal workers and the public and return to the bargaining table. The best collective agreements are negotiated at the negotiating table. Which just makes me sigh. So that is kind of what's going on there. I thought there was a little more to that, but CUPW's response to the Industrial Inquiry Commission on converting to community mailboxes and closing post offices. So that'll be interesting. I'm not going to read all of it. I think it'll be something I push to the next week, the next show, because we got a lot here. So, but that's something we're providing a lot of costing now that he required. Proof and for the weekend full-time delivery, for instance, we gave them this whole proof of concept and costing, so they can't hang on us that we don't know what the costs are. And Professor Lee, Mr. Lee, our lovely man who talks to all the media and tells us how things are supposed to go, we did an analysis of his submission. And that's exciting. I want to read that. I haven't read it yet. I'm kind of behind. We also did that constitutional challenge to the use of Section 107 and 108. I believe I've gone into a bit of that in the past. If not, my plan is to do a breakdown of what Section 107 and 108 is. Because that's why I'm running in Calgary Crowfoot this week here in the election for the federal NDP. And there you go. You just saw my campaign writ day video. It's a little late, but you saw it. And I'll be throwing anyway. The podcast, we're branching out a bit and getting outside of just CUPW. I want to bring this more around to the politics and the politics that affect the labor movement, which is everything that the NDP is bringing in, right? Like, or has forced to be brought in, like pharmacare, dental care. Just imagine if, when our teeth went, that we could get it done for free without having to rely on our benefits plan that doesn't cover a lot, right? Or we're expanding it, so who knows what could happen. Maybe things could change a little and make it more fair, but we got to talk about that when we're in power, or once we force whoever it is in power to expand those services and not cut them, right? So that's the same with us. We need someone in there who's going to force whoever is in power to stop using Section 107 and 108 and then change it. We need to get enough people in the House, whichever color seat they're sitting in, to vote against it if it ever happens, as in back to work legislation. Because that's what I think this is heading to. This is either heading to arbitration or back to work legislation. For some reason, they're avoiding both. And I don't want legislation, but if we get locked out on May 23rd, then what? Anyway, I think that's about... Oh, there was a date. That's right. After the second hearing, there was a agreed upon a couple of days to go back to the table and negotiate with Kaplan. Right here. I can bring that one up. This was on February 28th. CUPW is trying to negotiate new collective agreements for both urban and rural and suburban mail carrier RSMCs, which will both benefit postal workers and strengthen our public post office. Since the forced end of our legal strike in December, CUPW has participated in a mediated parallel round of negotiations with Canada Post in January. While some progress was made on some issues, the corporation's push for rollbacks was unacceptable, and that's my thing. That's what I'm going at. It's their way or the highway. There's very little movement in anything we're negotiating because they use the whole we're an emergency situation thing, and then our other workers, co-workers believe the propaganda, right? And they're not breaking into all the little things of how the day-to-day business works, that if you cut out and changed how it works, we would save money that way. But no, it's all here. And that's the other thing. If you don't know yet, they're blaming all the losses on the letter carriers because we're coming back early. We're doing 4 hours and getting paid for 8, which we know is BS. It's total BS because we know some of us can be more efficient than others and get done faster, or just more efficient and walk faster. Who knows? There's lots of different things that make someone finish their route early than somebody else. And, you know, my opinion, if you can rearrange your day, you can do it. So, back to this. The constitutional challenge of the use of Section 107. In December 2024, Steve McKinnon, the Minister of Labour, invoked Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code to force an end to our legal strike. CUPW believes this action was not only illegal, but a flagrant violation of our constitutional rights, which is exactly what I think, and the exact reason, the number one reason that pushed me into becoming a candidate and get more involved in politics federally, because of this. This is why we are continuing with our challenge of ministers' use of this order before the Canadian Industrial Relations Board. On March 3rd and 4th, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, CUPW, continued with its constitutional challenge before the Canadian Industrial Relations Board, the CIRB. We are challenging the constitutionality of the action taken by Steve McKinnon, the Minister of Labour, against our union in December 2024. He used his powers under Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code through an order to the CIRB to bring an end to our lawful nationwide strike. Violation of our rights. In recent past, we have seen the government resort to Section 107 of the Labour Code to end or suspend lawful strikes for many bargaining units. That's the past strikes. And they got forced to arbitration. And the last one, I think it was for the railway workers, was just the arbitration was given down. And it was a terrible outcome for the workers, as usual. We believe that this constitutes an attempt from Canada Post and the government, who is the sole shareholder of the Crown Corporation, to undermine the role of unions and workers in free collective bargaining. Unions across the country are fighting back against this unfair attack, and that's why I'm in it for you. I love that slogan because that's totally what shop stewards, they're in it for you, for us. And that's what I think every politician. And politicians. We should have more workers like you and I running this government. And yes, we can do it. We don't have to be lawyers and businessmen and career politicians and rich and all that stuff. All right. We believe that constant and repeated interventions from the government in collective bargaining disrupts the sensitive balance of power in the code and allows employers to stall negotiations awaiting government intervention. And that's what's happening here. They're stalling and stalling and stalling, and they're forcing in this restructure of SSD implementation. I mean, my depot being restructured right now, and with SSD, and as far as I'm concerned, it should have been paused, as well as the strike and what we're doing. They shouldn't be allowed to continue to bring this in because it's on the bargaining table. Like, it just doesn't make sense. We will continue to update members as we receive new information and encourage you to sign up for the e-digest, etc., etc., which you could do. Just go to CUPW/EN, well, English or French, whatever, /CUPW-eDigest, which, if you don't have that yet, then go to the CUPW.ca website, and it'll be in one of the bulletins. So, there is nothing yet, I believe. There's just, I don't think they've actually come to an agreement yet on anything. I've been involved with this whole election for now a month and a half, so I'm kind of out of the loop with things related to the negotiations, other than I know May 15th is coming, and then May 22nd. So there we go. That's updates for now.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Well, hopefully you can hear me with the wind here, but so I'm just leaving work, and I just found out that I'm going to be going with a whole bunch of Alberta candidates to Edmonton on Sunday to go to Charlie Angus's Elbows Up Canada rally. Pretty excited. So you're coming with me, and this is the announcement, and we'll do little play-by-plays on the way and while we're there. And also I'm going to be talking a lot about CUPW, Canadian Union of Postal Workers, our new Hands Off Our Postal Service campaign. I'll tell you more about that. It's got a lot to do with what's going on in the labor industry and the union movement. Anyway, we'll get to that later. I just wanted to tell you that I'm going to go see Charlie Angus, and I can't wait. Elbows up! Well, it's Sunday. Time to go to Edmonton for the Elbows Up rally with Charlie Angus. I'm heading to Airdrie to meet up with the candidate from Airdrie Cochrane. We're going together, and we'll check in once or twice here. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's going to be fun. See you in a bit.
Take the next left onto Silverview Drive Northwest.
And Canada is going to be the front line of the defense of a new vision of the world, a vision of decency, a vision of diversity, a vision of equity, a vision of inclusion, because we are true, north, strong, and free. Elbows up, my friends, elbows up. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Canada. Yeah. Here we go.
Charlie Angus, the amazing leader of the resistance story.
Elbows up, elbows up, elbows up, elbows up. Yes, indeed. Here we are. Wow. I needed this. You've been telling me when you came in the door how you needed to see me. No, I needed to see you. I did. From the minute the darkness descended on our world, I knew that Alberta and the people of Alberta would be strong as fuck for our country, right? I need to see you. Stand up now. I want to see the Canadian flag, and I want you to send a message to everyone in Canada that the front line is here, and we will hold the line, right? We're going to hold the line. Absolutely, because you know what? There may be quislings, and there may be traitors, but we know who they are. And your job is to make sure those quislings and traitors don't get any more ground in this country. That's why I'm here. But to be here on Treaty 6 land at this time, to be here in St. Basil's in the heart of Edmonton's proud Ukrainian community at this time, this is significant. This is significant because these are the shared bonds that make us a nation that cannot be beaten or broken. And we think of our brothers and sisters in Ukraine who are on the front lines right now fighting fascism. Ukraine is the front line and Canada is the other front line, and we have to hold the line. Right? We'll hold the line. And I know that people are frightened. It's okay. Do you, like me, reach for your phone before your eyes are even open and just think, what happened overnight? Well, I'm here to say, stop doom scrolling. That criminal is going to do what that criminal is going to do, but we are going to do what we are going to do. Right? So we are in a world of darkness right now. We cannot pussyfoot around it. I need each of you to be a candle in the darkness so that other people see that you're willing to stand up. And when you're willing to stand up, they won't be afraid to stand up. And that's what this is about. This isn't a, let's all pat ourselves on the back and feel great about being Canadian. We are in the fight of our lives. And it's a fight that I never thought I would see. But fascism is on the march. The rule of law is being erased. People are being snatched off the streets in the United States right now. Donald Trump is shaking down law firms and making them work for him for free. And they're bending and kissing the gangster's ring. So let me ask you a theoretical question. Would the people of Alberta ever, in a million years, bend down and kiss a gangster's ring? Would that be even possible? Absolutely. That's why I'm here. And I want to tell you a bit about how I ended up in this journey that we're on. It's not about me. Because the resistance didn't start with leaders. It started with you. It started with you waking up and saying, I am not going to let my country be taken away from me. Yes. And when you saw the quizzling traitor go down to Mar-a-Lago to hang out with Kevin O'Leary, and you said, she doesn't represent us. She doesn't. And you knew you had to do something. That's how the resistance began. We saw the absolute failure of democracy when a convicted predator, felon, sexual weirdo took control of the White House. And I knew then that we were now in the time of monsters. I couldn't think of anything at that moment but the Antonio Gramsci line, which I've never studied philosophy, so I don't know why I knew Antonio Gramsci's line, but it was in my head. That a new world is struggling to be born. But we are in the time of monsters, and this is the time of the monsters. And once we know that, we can start taking steps. So what are the steps to be taken? So, the morning after the Trump election, I just lay in bed. And I decided I was going to give myself a break from social media. I didn't want to think about it. And at 8:30 in the morning, I got a phone call from my wife back in Northern Ontario, and she's an Albertan. And I live in terror of that woman. And she said to me, "You have not posted anything yet, why not?" This after accusing me of having married Facebook. And I said, "I don't know what to say." She said, "I don't care what you say, you speak up, because other people don't know what to say, and they need someone to start speaking." Isn't that how it started? I work for her, yes. And that first post, I was overwhelmed with responses. And I suddenly realized that I wasn't alone, and we weren't alone. And that's how the resistance began. It begins when we start moving out of our fear and reaching out, because we don't know what else to do, so we start reaching out. And then he said that we didn't have a right to have a country. Yeah. That we weren't even a real country. Shame. And then, have I mentioned I went to see the legislature this morning? I was hoping to meet Danielle Smith. I'm just glad she hasn't put up the stars and bars and the Confederate rebel flag on the legislature yet, but I brought a ladder because I was going to take it down if she had. Not here, no way. But Danielle is off again in these, like, they have these meetings that the public's not invited to. Like, what's that? With MAGA. Meeting with the guy who planned the tariff war that's out to destroy our jobs and our economy and our family, and she was hanging out with him. When she should have been here defending the people of Alberta who are being hammered by the tariffs. And we've never seen her do that. So I showed up to see Danielle. She wasn't there. But I'm not surprised, because you're here. And you're the front line of resistance. Right? And it has been now, what, a week? Just over a week since Donald Trump announced his brilliant plan to destroy the world's economy. Planned by one of the guys Danielle Smith was hanging out with, right? And he called it Liberation Day. What a desecration of a powerful word. You know, but this is what they do. This is the Canada is broken, disinformation rage machine of the Polyev gang, of the Maple MAGA, of trying to read into our brains and make us think we don't belong with one another. And then to call it something that it is the opposite. Liberation is a powerful word. It's a sacred word. You know, liberation was when the children of Israel were freed from slavery. That was liberation. Liberation is Juneteenth, when the black community were freed finally, and they celebrated because they know what liberation means.
That's right.
Exactly. And I had the great honor to be in France on Liberation Day, June 6th, D-Day. They know what liberation means. It's a powerful thing. And I never really understood what it meant till I stood there at Juno Beach and saw the graves. It's a powerful thing. Because you realize our young people in a country of 11 million people went over to free other people from fascist tyranny. Not for any self-benefit, but to free people they didn't know. And when we landed on Juno Beach, we didn't get to celebrate. There was a lot of hard fighting. And at Benny-sur-Mer, the graves are June 6, Winnipeg, 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 Regina, 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 Montreal, Montreal. They fought and they died and they're buried side by side. And I walked that graveyard, seeing town after town being put into the meat grinder to fight fascism. And then I started seeing young men from my own towns, Kirkland Lake, Matheson, Timmins, lying there from the days that they died on the battlefield. And every 15 minutes, from Juno Beach all the way through the Netherlands, Canadians lie. And I thought of this because, I was at the Brussels NATO meetings. I went there to be reassured. I was sure when I went to Brussels that the MAGA Republicans who were there would get scolded by Germany. You can't pick on a NATO ally. Nope. I thought France would say something. I thought UK would say something. And they were all tiptoeing around the Republican mob that were there, who were just lording over everybody as they were selling the people of Ukraine out at the same time. Shame. And this guy gets up. Now, these things are very formal. I don't know why they let me go. But these things are very formal. And this guy, I don't know, he's some secretary general or something. I don't know what the frick. But he's trying to placate the Americans. And he says, in Canada, you have to carry your weight. Oh, yeah. So I stood up. Yeah. I stood up. And I just said, whoa. My wife's uncle, Patrick Johnson, Edmonton, Alberta, died crossing the Leopold Canal. He's buried 15 minutes down the road, and you're going to tell us we're going to carry our weight? Don't you ever tell Canada to carry its weight when it comes to fighting fascists. That's who we are. That's our history. And we will do it again. Because that's the fight that's before us. So Donald Trump calling it Liberation Day. No. And now he's already panicking. But we have to hold the line. I would like to think that this is all just a bad dream. I'd like to be a Democrat sometimes. No, I wouldn't. I was listening to this Democrat the other day on the radio. He was somebody important. He had a name and he'd done all this stuff. And he was talking about the midterms and the pendulum swing. It's like a pendulum swing. You have destroyed the rule of law in your country and you're seizing people off the streets and putting them in illegal detention centers and deporting them and making these grotesque selfies of people in overcrowded El Salvadorian prisons, and you think that it's just a pendulum swing? That is the disappearance of the rule of law. So no, I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Canadian, because Canadians are in the front line of the fight against fascism. That's where we are right now. And I'm not saying that to boast. But the rest of the world is watching us. The rest of the world is watching because Donald Trump thought we were an easy mark. Well, guess what? Elbows up. Yeah, elbows up. But I was leading into this. I was frightened. Because for a long time, we've been sleepwalking as a nation. We've been disconnected from each other. We've been allowing the voices of disinformation and rage and the Danielle Smiths and the Pierre Poilievres to pick apart our nation. We gave our flag what was stolen from us by conspiracy haters who hung our flag upside down and paraded it through the streets. We're taking our flag and putting it back right side up. Right side up. That's our flag. It's not the haters' flag. Right? But there's a difference about why we can raise the flag. Because we are a nation that has come to understand that we have done some very bad and terrible things. We are on a journey of understanding that there can be no resistance without reconciliation. Right? That the crimes committed in the residential schools have to be atoned for. And we cannot change what happened before, but we can change where we're going, right? Because the fundamental relationship from the beginning, which brings us back right here to St. Basil's, was the settler-indigenous relationship. And let's face it, our side didn't keep our part of the bargain at all. But where we're at now is the decision of where we're going to be. 150 years from now, that relationship will still be there. And no criminal, fascist, gangster, and his Mussolini friends are going to come in and decide what our relationship on our land, on our resources, is going to be decided. We will decide that future because we will decide that together. Because that's the journey we're on. Because we know being proud isn't being jingoistic. Being proud is that we're willing to defend our democracy and our way of life. Because there's things that those incel losers hate. You know, woke. Like woke. I'm woke. Are you woke? Yeah. We were sleepwalking and we woke up. So yeah, damn right, we're woke. We're ready now. We're wide awake. We're woke. And Antifa. I love that. You know, the first time I was called Antifa, I had to call my daughter and say, I've just been accused of being an Antifa. What's an Antifa? She said, anti-fascist. I said, well, isn't that a good thing? Yeah. But to the conspiracy haters, it's not, because they are the promoters of fascism. So am I Antifa? I come from a long line of Antifa. My uncles kicked Nazi ass all over Europe. And they did it so that we wouldn't have to face the threats that we're facing today. So, you know, Daniel Smith's down there trying to cut a deal for oil. Leaving Alberta's ag community high and dry, leaving your tech community high and dry, leaving small businesses getting hammered. You know, Donald Trump thinks he'll just take it, like he says he's going to take the water, like he's going to take the critical minerals. And then he says there's nothing else he wants from us. There's something he wants to take from us that's more valuable than all the gold, all the oil, all the diamonds in this country. It's our decency, right? They cannot stand that on the largest unguarded border in the world, there's a country that lives by the rule of law. A country that lives by a term that they hate more than anything, DEI. Diversity, equity, inclusion. That's what defines us, and that's what we're going to defend, and they will not take that from us. I can tell you, I've talked to organizations working with youth who do cross North America events who've been told they have to change the language here in Canada to say nothing about inclusivity because it'll affect possible American funding. I've talked to people from universities in Canada who, when they're holding talks, have taken the words climate out of it. In Canada, because they don't want to offend the fascists south of the border. Well, I want to offend the fascists south of the border. I want you to offend the fascists south of the border. Because this is what the fight is, my friends. It is the fight for a nation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is our nation, and we will defend it. We will defend it to the last. So I'm asking you to do a few things. You know, April 9th was the anniversary of the execution of Pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer, one of the few Germans who stood up. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer had said just before he died that it wasn't just enough for us to bandage the victims who were being crushed under the fascist wheel. We had to stick a spoke in the wheel of oppression and stop it. That's what our job today is. Because if we don't stop it now, we will be on the same front line that Ukraine is. We have to hold it so that our young people don't have to pay the sacrifice that our great uncles and grandfathers paid. It's up to us to keep the line of freedom, to hold the line. Because you know what's amazing about Donald Trump and his gang? They get spooked. Didn't they get spooked? We stood up to them. Pete Navarro. Okay, and I'm just going to say, you can hold it against me, but I do agree with Elon Musk on one thing. He called Pete Navarro a total moron, right? So the fascist is now calling the moron a moron. I love when MAGA fights. But Pete Navarro came out and he said, hey, Canada, tone down the rhetoric. What? They haven't even started. He's like, all that hockey stuff. It's like, we haven't even got to the point where we pull the jersey over your head. We haven't even done elbows up yet. And we haven't even sent out the women's team. And when that happens, dude, you're going to be really, 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 really sorry. So no, we're not going to tone down the rhetoric. I can't promise you that this is going to go away. I can't promise you that people aren't going to get hurt. And I can't promise you that people aren't going to suffer. But I can promise you that we will be standing true, north, strong, and free at the end of the day, right? We will still be Canada no matter what they do. So keep the boycott strong. I know you, I don't even have to tell you, but I'm just repeating the importance so you can tell your neighbors. The boycott can't waver at all. We have to keep it strong. So that's the first thing I need you to do. The second thing is, do not let them us be divided from each other. Right? That's what Daniel Smith and Premier Moe have been doing. That's what Preston Manning is doing. Who, in the moment when a nation is under threat from a foreign fascist power, starts talking about breaking up the country? Right? Shame. Them and their straw army. You know? So don't let us get divided from each other. Quebec is strong. The Maritimes are strong. The North are strong. The West is strong. We are strong together. And again, we are strong when we're respecting that we are on Indigenous lands, and we are going to do this with respect, because that's how we're going to get through this. So don't ever let us be divided, and speak up, speak loudly, and let the world know where Alberta stands when it comes to defending who we are as a nation. I need you to do that. And I know you're going to do that. I don't fear Donald Trump. I don't. He's just a decrepit, creepy predator. He might have fooled some people there, but he doesn't fool us. And he's now come against Canada. And what do? We have the Juno Beach gene in us. Once the fight starts, we don't stop that fight till the job is done. So Donald, it doesn't matter how long you go, I'm not afraid of you, because I know who's with us. But what I fear more is MAGA Maple. We cannot let Pierre Poilievre and the politics of disinformation and rage and Canada is broken ever get in. I've sat across from them in the House of Commons. I have sat across from Conservatives my whole life. There are many Conservatives that I know that I may not agree with on many, but I respect. But I do not respect what I see with the hate slogans and the disinformation and the refusal to even disassociate himself from the likes of Alex Jones. You know, that's who he is. And I've never actually heard him say that he had a problem with Daniel Smith threatening to break up our country. He's never said that either. We cannot let MAGA Maple win. And that's why I'm in Edmonton. Because the front line of the fight in the West to stop conservatives is here in Edmonton, right? But you are not going to achieve anything unless we elect new Democrats here in Edmonton. Because we are the path to stopping MAGA Maple. We are always the path. So I'm asking you to support your candidates here. I need you to do that work. Will you do that work? Of course you'll do that work. So that's the task before us. And I want to say at the end of the day, what a great honor it is to be with you. Because there's a Canada that lives in my mind. It was a Canada I wasn't sure existed after a while of hearing all the disinformation and the rage. But I knew it was out there. It was the Canada that I fell in love with when I was first 18 years old. The first time I came out to Alberta and saw the sky.
All right. Well, we have a friend of ours back again, and I've been looking forward to this. How's it going, bro?
It's going pretty good. We're, seeing some momentum finally here, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. There's still a lot of work to be done, but so far so good.
I know the feeling. Lots of work to be done. And yeah, I just earlier in the show, I had just announced to everybody, even though it's 10 days to the election, that I'm a candidate here in Calgary, and my whole one of my motivations was, well, the major motivation for me to get involved was because of what's going on with us. And it's pretty handy about our little campaign. Anyway, I briefly talked about it at the beginning of the show, so I want to start off. Could you explain to me what the Hands Off Our Post Office is all about? And also, taking consideration too that other candidates will be hearing this, because I'm going to be forcing it down their throat.
Well, yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I guess a little bit of the background, this campaign really stemmed from the feeling that I had and that most of us had after we were ordered back to work by the government unconstitutionally. And in some respects, we believe it to be an illegal imposition of that order. It certainly violates our rights, and what it really did is it had an effect on us as members in feeling like a lot of the work that we put in, a lot of the solidarity that was built on the strike line came to an abrupt end. And a feeling like that when you have that right to strike and that right to collectively bargain, and it gets taken from you, there's a massive feeling of disappointment and disaffection that happens, and that no doubt has happened amongst our membership. So I was one of those people, as the local president for Saskatoon, feeling that as soon as we had to sort of call people back to work, and we got the order to do so.
Just give it lucky I can edit this out. Woohoo! Do, so we can swear and everything now. Although I swear a lot in the podcast anyway. Oh, there we are.
You know what I'm going to do, Jim? I'm just going to load up, I think, with my phone here if I can.
Sure.
I can pick up, yeah. Okay, so this campaign was born, sort of right after the day that we were ordered back to work. And I was feeling really bad about it. And then the following day, myself and a couple of us started to come together with the feeling that you know, this is not going to be a loss unless we do absolutely nothing about it. And I feel like some of the feeling was that we weren't hearing a whole lot about the other side. We weren't hearing a whole lot about, you know, CUPW side and letting sort of the corporate narrative really take hold and run. And so the campaign was born in saying, we must do something about that. We must create a counter narrative, and we must, you know, put out there, similar to when we ran the Save Door to Door campaign. It became sort of a multifaceted campaign in order to try to reverse some of the decisions that were made, and, you know, underneath it all, bring some fealty back to the membership in saying there is something we can do about this. And so I started writing up the campaign along with a couple of other members, as I mentioned, and it just sort of took hold. We presented it to the National Executive Board, and it passed, and it really became a new vehicle for us to be able to run with the idea that we do have a say here. We do have something that we can do. And we, you know, most of the public, I don't think, especially, by virtue of the narrative that they've been hearing, understand that this is something that seems to have been happening for years, if not over a decade, with a slow push towards getting rid of the post office services and the public service that is the post office. So ultimately, the worry is that this may move to privatization, and certainly the narrative was all about cuts and austerity. And so regardless, that looks like less jobs and a major effect on the public, because when the public service is affected, you know, members in the communities lose services and they don't get replaced by private services and for-profit companies. And so the idea is threefold for the campaign. Number one, we want to make sure that Canada Post does not move towards privatization and further cuts. Secondly, that our right to collectively bargain and strike is protected, because this could be it's not just for postal workers that this affects when they sort of circumvent our ability to collectively bargain. They've used the Section 107 order now a few times, and it's putting us into new territory that we have to fight, and seems to be a circumvention of our right to strike. And thirdly, that there's a solution to all the losses. There's a solution to everything that they're claiming, and that's that we want to see the post office services expanded. And we've had a campaign in the past called Delivering Community Power. It still exists, and it's meant to be that solution and say that there are many services that other countries provide in their post office and have provided in the past that brings in some cases, over €1 billion per year when you're talking about some of the services out in Europe. And this can easily counter the shortfall that they're claiming every year, 750 million. Despite the fact that we know that some of those numbers are not exactly as they show, they don't mention that they've made investments, large scale investments to the tune of $4 billion that could account for this. But they're also pumping out the narrative that this is needed, and this is absolutely the case. And so these services can, despite their claims, despite, even if you were to believe those claims and agree with those claims, because they are facing a shortfall, that these things can bring some of that money back. So that's the idea of the campaign. It's a grassroots-led campaign. Canada Post listens to government, as we've seen with this order. And for Canada Post to change, government needs to change. Just as with Save Door to Door campaign, government needs to demand that this remain a public service. And for the government to listen, they must listen to the constituents. But we know there are plenty of other factors there. There's a large scale lobbying that goes on from the bigger corporations, from banks in particular, that don't want this to happen. And so part of our plan is to speak directly to municipalities who are calling for these services. In a lot of cases, in the small, rural, or remote communities, they're already losing many of their services, but they still have their post office. And most of them don't realize until we speak to them that they're potentially going to lose the services that they have in their town. And in a lot of cases, they've already lost their bank, they've already lost their grocery store, and have to drive 50 kilometers out of town just to get their services met. So when we speak to municipalities and they endorse the campaign, it speaks loudly. The part of the campaign is to deal directly with politicians, candidates for the upcoming election, MPs, and look for promises that this is, if they were to form government, that they would promise not to have these things happen, that those 3 points that I mentioned earlier would be followed. And so far, we're seeing some serious momentum. It's fortunate that there's an election happening. When we began this campaign, and this was December, January, it seemed like it was going to be, heavily conservative, or a conservative majority, or at least that's what the polls were saying. And things have shifted absolutely in a major way. And so therefore, this campaign is not partisan. It's not meant to prop up any particular party. But what we are doing is we're looking for support for postal workers, and we're speaking loudly about those that support postal workers, so that we can support those who support postal workers. If that's not too redundant, I apologize. But instead of going after any particular party, what we're doing is we're ramping up the pressure on all political parties and looking for this promise as this election comes in only 8 days from the day we're recording here.
Yeah.
So it's multifaceted. It's there's a lot to it. We're seeing ad campaigns. We're seeing all sorts of things that we did not see during the strike, and it's meant to bring that awareness to the public, and it's meant to bring back fealty to the membership.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know, because this is actually going to be the first episode that I've opened up to the world. So in other words, it won't be just letter carriers and posties that'll be the focus of this. And who knows, maybe this will be bigger. I was thinking of starting a separate podcast for real life, but it dawned on me that I'm bringing so much in, and there's so much overlap with what's going on during the election and with us that, like when I'm at the doors, their eyes just go wide when I start talking, because a lot of the other issues at the door, are about the cost of living and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But being a postie is actually quite helpful. It's because I break the ice with our situation so easily by just saying I'm a letter carrier with Canada Post, and of course I live on my route, and so I'm also in my own riding, so I can just go, and I live right over there, and or I delivered the mail to my competition for 8 months. Like there's all these little things that open it up, but.
Well, we're uniquely in the communities, right? Like we, unlike a lot of services, we are still in the communities, and that's part of what we're trying to protect. That when the public service is a big part of this, and public service is always meant to make things less expensive and to provide an expansive amount of community service. And I think most people, once you have a 5 or 10 minute discussion, most people agree that that they would like services to be cheaper and to be widened, so that the things that the post office can offer are expanded. But they're hearing a lot of the other when they listen to the news, and they're hearing about the losses. And anybody that's seen a public service get lost in the past, it's always begins with public losses, and that's always part of the narrative. And I mean, sort of my perspective as somebody from Saskatchewan, and this has also happened in other provinces, but it was a big deal in Saskatchewan, was the loss of our Saskatchewan Transit. We had a bus service, and it was similar to our situation. You could get from anywhere in our province, whether it's small town, large communities, you could take the bus there, and so it had a network all the way throughout the province. It made things cheaper. Our social services utilized the bus, of course, because there's a lot of transporting of youth, of people with disabilities, or people who have to get to their families in other communities. And they did the same thing then. They said, you know what, it's losing. And instead of investing money into enhancing the public service, they invested in losses, in a campaign of losses. And ultimately, when it was lost, they said, don't you worry, the private companies, the for-profit companies will come in, and they'll still handle all of the little communities. And guess what? They did not. And still to this day, it's been, I forget the exact date, but it's been a decade plus since we've had that service lost. And it has certainly hurt us, and it has hurt costs as well, when you have social services using taxis and things in order to drive outside of the city, and costing everybody more in the end. So that's the same thing we're looking at here. We're looking at a public service that is uniquely in almost every community, and in most cases they haven't lost their post office, but If you looked at the most recent demands from the corporation, they're looking to cut rural post offices. One of their demands was to remove part of the moratorium on post office closures so they can close more post offices. So that's what we're trying to say to people, to members of the public, that I'm not sure if you're fully aware, but this is what we're facing here, is the loss of that public service, and most people aren't actually aware of that at this point.
So we're basically the part of the campaign for the general public is mostly just about education.
Yeah.
Because I know that some people go, oh, well, what can I do? And I know with our campaign, there's actually something for them to petition on the website, right?
Correct. Yes, they can go to the website. They can send a form letter directly. It's already created for their MP. You just put in your name and you put in your address or the part of the country that you live in, and it'll be sent directly to that MP, and it'll be telling government that we demand this. And so you're right. It's about education, but it's also about empowerment, not only for our members, but for the people in the public to say, hey, if you're demanding this, here's how you can demand this from your representatives. And that's not just MPs, though they are the decision makers. It's also your municipal government, it's your provincial government, who also represent large swaths of people that are saying, we don't want this to happen. We don't want to lose our post office, and we don't want to lose that public service. And when you have the ability to do these actions, take part in some of the public things that are coming, and really just spreading the information amongst your families, your social groups, etc., it empowers people of this country to say, hey, we don't want to lose that service. As a matter of fact, we want to expand it into areas that are either potentially going to lose it, or, in the case of a lot of Indigenous communities or far north communities, have never actually had the services and can have, services brought in, as we've done in the past. We've actually pushed for community hubs to be created, and that's been successful so far. So yeah, it's a real empowerment, education for the public, as well as our members.
Yeah, that's cool. The letters to the candidates was really funny because I had a few of our posties email me, and actually there's one I haven't replied to, but it was kind of fun because I got to go, hey, I'm on it, that kind of stuff, and wink, wink, or whatever, and
right.
and actually. One of them, because I had two, and then I got one I haven't answered, but one of them was like, "Oh, what, that was you." They weren't really
so
sure
funny.
if it was a form letter, so I tried to actually, make it personalized. Anyway, I love that.
Yes.
I thought that was awesome. And there is a few. I think there's a few other candidates. I think maybe there's just one that's also a postie. So I'm curious if she's gotten any letters from her coworkers. But yeah, anyway, that's the fun part.
I would imagine. I would imagine coworkers and hopefully members of the public as well. We're trying to make this as widespread as possible.
Totally.
Yeah.
So now the one thing when we had some of us go to our depots here in Calgary and explain kind of what's going on. I know one of the letter carriers looked at the poster and kind of went, well, how are we gonna stop? Like, isn't it too late? Like, what can I do with this piece of paper that's gonna make the boss not fire me on May 23rd?
Certainly, and I think a lot of that comes from the feeling of disaffection that happened, right? It felt like that strike that we were on for 33 days and gained a lot of solidarity with. When it was ended, it felt like there was nothing else. It felt like it was a loss.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're trying to counteract. But I completely 100% agree. That's how I felt and how many people felt, because that's what it's designed to do. Not only from the corporation, but from the government, is meant to give you that feeling of there's not much we can do about this, and they're going to strong arm this forward. But when you're in, if we're talking to members and you're in the depot and we're looking at that piece of paper, the idea is beginning to understand the campaign that it is, but also when we're talking to the members, we're also talking to them and planning actions and discussing ways that the members can get it to the public. Because as we said, when Canada Post listens to government listens to the constituents or its people, it is postal workers that have to get it out to them, right? It has to come from us. We're the ones who are saying, hey, we're flagging the issue here for everybody to know, because we're inside this. And it is to counter that feeling of loss. Like, I've got nothing I can do. It's a very short amount of time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wish we had been doing this for longer if we had a crystal ball. But ultimately, if we do nothing, then we accept what's coming. And,
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions in a Section 107. What does that mean for our right to strike? Do we have to call another strike vote?
Hmm.
Is it just a pause? And again, all of this is meant to have members feel like they're powerless, like they've lost. But the campaign is to do the exact opposite and to say, okay, here, if we put this up in these are just small things, but if you put it up on your window, if you put it up as a lawn sign, and you have people, candidates coming to the door and they see hands off my post office, it's going to start to resonate with them. And lo and behold, we've had quite a lot of leaders that have taken pictures and held up the pledge that we're hands off of my post office. And so it really speaks loudly when you have members of the public, members of CPW holding up that sign. This is my post office, just like it is yours.
Yep.
And we don't need to have for-profit companies coming in and taking over that space. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. I got the luxury, and everyone will see the pictures here in a few seconds. There they are. No, I don't know, maybe. But Charlie Angus, I'm not sure if you've been following Charlie Angus lately, but he's on a crusade right now of the resistance. And man, it was such an honor to talk to him about this because he got it. He really got it. And same with Heather McPherson, the MP from Edmonton. Actually, she, with James Ball, went during January with all of this mail that's being delayed, Section 49 or 50. I don't remember which one's which, but they went there to try to get in.
Hey everyone, I am here outside one of the Canada Post facilities. I'm here with James. James is the president of the Cup W local, and we've got some real concerns about what's happening in this building.
Canada Post will tell you that the workers aren't doing the job, but the simple fact of the matter is that the volumes that are in this building have been here since before the strike, and they're not being allowed to be moved. They're not giving people extended time or overtime to get the product out to you, which is what we wanted to.
Yeah, and the reason we're outside is I tried to go in so I could get a look. I could actually see what's actually happening on the floor, and we were denied. So we're standing outside this facility. New Democrats will always stand in support of workers, and right now, your posties aren't being treated fairly.
They get it big time. And Matthew, if you're watching, thank you, because we need, once this election's over, I have a personal plan to get this worked out somehow, get communication flowing with these MPs that I've come to know. And all of the conversations I've had, we all don't really know how we can help, but there's definitely a bunch of us, including candidates that, probably won't be MPs this time round. But there's a bunch of us. This is the first time the NDP has ever had a full slate of candidates across the country.
Wow.
And in my riding, I am the first physical candidate for the NDP who's gone door to door knocking, mostly because it's a new riding. But really, and I'm the only one. When I've been going to the doors, there's they go, "You're the only guy that's come around." And I mean,
wow.
My riding is huge, and I'm never going to be able to get to everybody in 4 weeks. But the people I have gone to, they all say, "You're the only guy that's come. I haven't heard anything from anybody else. We were wondering if anyone would come." and then I talk about the post office and find out who their letter carrier is. And, miraculously, I know them.
Miraculously, exactly.
Then I get to chat with them about their letter carrier and all the little things that they know and I know. And it all of a sudden feels like we're in a big party. But that's the cool thing about why I've... there's always fear to door knock, and I know now I'm talking to the letter carriers because this is where you come in right now between now and Monday. If you can somehow contact your candidate and sign up to volunteer door knocking, they will need you for sure, because we all do right now. And I know it's more walking for those letter carriers. But the point is that just for little of time, like 2 hours is all you have to do for that matter. And all you do is stand there. Oh, that's another thing. You might not know what to do. You just stand there with the candidates' flyers. And now we'll have also our hands off our post office things to offer them to put in their window, right? Because that's another step. It's like, what do I do? And I remember I had this with one of my volunteers. They're like, well, what do I do with this thing? From hands off our post office. I said, well, that's what we want them to take and put in their window. We had to work on how to get them to do it and such, but Um, but yeah, it's opening up doors, that's for sure.
Well,
And
definitely.
I mean, I know we're not partisan with our union, but I will tell you from my perspective as an NDP candidate, we are the only ones who really care about us. The blue guys claim, and I love how Jugmeat puts it, is that he cosplays as a worker because he's never been one. I mean, maybe when he was a teenager before he
Right.
went to university. And I'm not trying to bad. My campaign has been not about attack ads, but my campaign has also been about making sure you choose the people who are truly going to build our company back, because that's based on what I see happening. We have a commissioner now that's going to be offering up some solutions on May 15th. But then what? Who takes that information and does what? Right? So we need
Exactly.
so for those of you who are wondering why I should go door knock and why I should do this and why I should do that, it's because we need the insurance that whatever happens, if it's legislation back to work where everyone votes in the House, well, we have to make sure we have to be political now and pretend that we're in a party and start being a whip and
Yeah.
convince these MPs to vote against it. And that's where getting as many NDP candidates in
Hmm.
is important because then we get the votes. It's not about us winning power, even though we'd love to be in power. It's not about that. It's about being the strong defense that we have now to bring in stuff like dental care and pharmacare and all those things that the liberals are now saying that they created, even though we push them to do it and their plan kind of sucks compared to what we want. And we're working towards that. But it's going to be the same thing here.
Right.
The liberals are not going to make this company what it should be. They're going to make it what the people in the suits and the guys with the money in the pockets are going to do. And that's my fear. What happens when, well, Carney should have already stopped this process the minute he got in. If he was truly for the workers, he would have stopped it. He would have said, this is unconstitutional. This is all the things that we think. I'm for the people. I'm for you. I'm going to help you get out of this situation. And the best way to defend against Donald Trump is to build our own things, which is our postal service. And without the postal
Absolutely.
service, we're going to be in danger of Donald Trump too, because now we're going to have propaganda spread everywhere into us, and we're going to now, oh my God, we need the US because we can't get our mail, and the US will do it
Yeah.
through Amazon, right? Because
Hmm.
I've heard that that's the person that that's the company Trump wants to take over running the USPS. I haven't heard anything more about that since he was running. But anyway, I've talked a long time,
No,
and
no, no.
so
Um,
I guess what I'm saying is that just get out there and yeah, if you have, oh no, we got 10 minutes, that's cool. If even if it's a different color, that's another good thing is that if you push your liberal candidate and your conservative candidate to bring you door knocking and talk about this, they might actually figure out what's going on and maybe change their tune and vote against their party's wishes. Who knows? We'll see what happens, right? So, anyway, that's my service announcement about the election, and that's why it's important to get on right now, and why I'm going to take the time out of door knocking to get this podcast out today.
Sure, sure. No, that's great. Well, first, Jim, I just want to congratulate you for doing that, for taking the step to go to become a candidate. That's not easy. It takes a lot of work and takes a lot of dedication. So that's big, and it's huge that you've done that. So congrats on that, securing the nomination, etc. And you're right. We are, constitutionally mandated not to be partisan, and indeed, we do have a large swath of members that vote in different directions, and that's okay. This campaign isn't meant to sway how people vote, but what we are meant to do is we are meant to show who supports postal workers, and we're going to show postal workers and the public who supports postal workers and who supports saving this post office. And I can say, when you're talking about, Matthew Green, when you're talking about Peter Julian, when you're talking about Heather McPherson, when you're talking about even Jagmeet Singh, who was in Saskatoon and held up the sign as well, hands off my post office. A large majority is coming from the NDP, and that shouldn't be a surprise. They are a workers' party. That's some of the reason that I'm to what you were saying, it's in the platforms, and you can see what what is supported. And but we would like to see that. We would like to see each and every party, like ultimately speaking, if every single party said hands off my post office, then we would feel pretty secure in the next election and saying, okay, then they're not going to come after the post office. But we know that that's not necessarily the case. We aren't hearing back from certain parties, but I can say that so far the NDP has been in full support and has been continuing on. So that, from my side of things, that's what we've been able to show so far. But we are, like I say, we're still 10 days, or what is it, 8 days out now of the election, and so we're still trying to do this. But it's important people understand too that this campaign, if it were to have been a politically based campaign from the beginning, it would have been running for months and months beforehand. But because it isn't, the be all end all is not the way the election goes. We would like to see some proactive. This is why we're being proactive, is so that they can make this promise beforehand. But as we understood beforehand, it might have been a conservative majority at one point, and things have changed. But it's about what happens after this election, and it's the campaign must continue after the election. So in case people think it's heavily tied to or politically based, and based on the election, it's not. It's meant to continue when we lead into May 15th, which is when the commissioner provides his report. The commissioner who was leading the Industrial Inquiry Commission on the future of Canada Post, which is there just to recommend to government. But that report will be released on May 15th, and our collective bargaining agreement, which was unilaterally changed and given a new date by the minister, McKinnon, is on May 22nd. And so there's a week in between. And this is going to be really huge to see what's going to happen going forward, because there's a lot of things that have been floated around, including the mandate review for Canada Post. The exclusive handling of letter mail has been in the news as well. And of course, the moratorium on post office closures. And so it's going to be really big to see what happens there. So once the election is done, then we switch into a new form of the campaign. And we really have to hit hard, and what people have to really understand too, especially from the NDP, from the labor groups and those that represent labor, we'd love to see that from all other parties as well, is that when you impose these types of orders, that they are infringing on your right to collectively bargain and infringing on your right to strike. Because if you can be unilaterally imposed back to work and not by any form of legislation which needs the vote in the House, then you're circumventing this right. And this is a right that was fought all the way to the Supreme Court. The SFL, the Saskatchewan Federation of Labor, in 2015 took the Saskatchewan government to court, and it went all the way to the Canadian Supreme Court, and that right to strike was entrenched. So when you start to see this discussion go this way, and we've been imposed and ordered back to work, not even by legislation, this is not just for postal workers, this is for the future of labor. And when we're bringing this issue to the public, it has to include the labor piece, and labor does have to understand what this could do for the future of collective bargaining and for the future of striking. So on top of trying to save that post office, we also want to maintain and embolden and solidify that right to collectively bargain and to strike, which is constitutionally protected. So you'll see a bit of a switch towards that as well as we move on.
Well, I guess we're almost out of time, so I'm not sure if we've covered everything about the campaign, but I guess, is there anything you think we've missed that we can tie up?
No, it begins with the membership, and it moves to the public, and the public are the biggest engine in the change that is the public service, and we want to make sure that maintains. And so the membership, the public, we do have a political angle now that there's an election, as well as labor, and so just look out for the signs. You can go to cupw.ca and you can see the hands off my post office right there on the website. When you click that, you can go, if you're a candidate or an MP, you can sign a pledge, which goes a long way, a pledge that you'll support these initiatives. If you're a member of the public, you can send that form letter that we discussed earlier to your MP to make that change. But we're looking for a full court press, and I think we handled all of the core tenets, and we can get into a lot of discussion about little details, but we don't have time for that today. We can do that another time.
We can do. You've kind of become my unofficial co-host sometimes.
Happy to be here, Jim,
which is kind of cool. I think that's cool. So for the last few days of the election, I've
Yes.
decided that I'm going to come out with my, I guess, a pledge,
Mhm.
my promise that if I do become the member of parliament for Calgary Crowfoot, and even if I don't, because I am on the board, I'm the secretary on the board, so I'm
Okay.
still going to be the NDP representative in this riding after the election. So
Awesome.
my pledge to letter carriers, workers, and the public is not just ending if I don't win
Right.
because my number one issue, and like I was kind of trying to say, I guess earlier, and I cut myself off, is that the number one issue for everybody is standard of living and Donald Trump and all that. And
Hmm.
I force for them to listen to Section 107 and 108 so that they realize that
Mm.
the workers are actually the way out of all of this. Because if we strengthen the workers, which is, in my opinion, now the low class, because of
Hmm.
how the prices have increased and our wages haven't. So now we are low class. There is no middle. And so if
Absolutely.
we strengthen the workers, we can get the middle and not my utopian thing is we're all middle class. There is no low class because that's
Hmm.
disparaging
Hmm.
to those who have issues. I've been homeless in the past, and it's a circle. You lose a bank account, you can't get money, and you can't do this. And now with it being so digital, anyhow.
Absolutely.
So my
Absolutely.
pledge day today on Easter Sunday is that I will stand with you, and I will. The number one thing I'll do is get in there with Matthew Green's help, and I will be in question period questioning why this is happening and making it a thing. So I don't know how
Amazing.
that all is going to work, but I will be starting a campaign within the House of Commons
Amazing.
whether I'm here or not, because luckily this has put me. Uh, I sometimes go, what am I doing? Like, some people say, I say, hey, I'm your candidate for the NDP, and some people have said, why? What are you crazy in this place?
Hmm.
But that's my point is that they need to hear our message, and that's what I say to them too, is that don't look at it as the NDP winning or whatever. Look at it as getting that voice in your public to talk
Hmm.
to you, and I will be the one because if you follow my history as Pirate Jim, I push and I ain't stopping.
Yeah.
So today, my pledge is that for all workers, I will stand up for you and fight for you, and we have less than a minute.
Okay.
So
I guess I'll just finish up by saying that, that it has, it isn't necessarily about the partisan politics, but it is about, maintaining that public service. And when you talk about, cost of living, it's about a cheaper public service for everybody. And, there is no institution more Canadian than the post office, especially in today's day and age with all of the Trump rhetoric. And so that's why we're here. And just want to thank you for your time and allowing me to speak with you today, Jim.
awesome. We'll see you again soon. Everybody, this is
Absolutely.
Brom. Uh, I didn't even tell them who you were. He's the president of the Saskatoon local for CUPW. Uh, Thanks for coming, and we'll talk again soon, my brother. Well, there we go. There's that interview, and I hope I don't know, hope it explains some things that's going on here with our campaign, with hands off our post office. So I mentioned it in our interview there, but my plea to those out there, especially in my writing, that are letter carriers, please, in this last week, it's going to be Get Out the Vote soon with me. I'm starting next on Friday with the Get Out the Vote, which means I'm going to be trying to motivate the people that have said they're voting for me to get to the polls. But until then, there'll still be door knocking, especially with me. So I'm putting up the link right there. You can sign up for door knocking, and I need flyer delivery. You can sign up for the flyer delivery, and calling. We need a bunch of calling to be done, so we need some people to do that. And all of those things are on the volunteer page. Before I go, all I gotta say is please, when you go to that ballot box, please choose wisely for our future, whatever it is. People in charge right now have forced this back twice, and 4 other unions, right? Is that going to change? And since Carney took over, he hasn't taken back anything. And the Conservatives, well, they've done the same in the past. I know some of us think they're going to save us by saving money, but think about this. This is someone at the door told me this. Very simple. If we cut taxes too much, then how are we going to pay for what we have right now? And we're complaining that the healthcare is a mess and all these things. So how are we going to fix anything if we all of a sudden aren't bringing in enough revenue? If we're going to cut taxes, then we got to find another stream of income, right? How do rich people get rich? They have multiple streams of income, and of course they inherited a bunch of it, right? So we got to find someone that's going to do that. If you live in Calgary, Crowfoot, vote for me, because I will bring our voice to whatever color wins in Calgary. I will bring our voice there, and you know, because of this podcast, that I'll hold the other members of Parliament. I'll hold their feet to the fire. Ta-da! See you next time. Episode 4 in just a little while. Just a little while. I was a miner, I was a docker, and I was a railway man between the wars. I raised a family in times of austerity with sweat at the foundry between the wars. I paid the union, and as times got harder, I looked to the government to help the working man, but they brought prosperity down at the armory. We're running for peace, me boys, between the wars. I kept the faith, and I kept voting, not for the iron fist, but for the helping hand. For theirs is a land with a wall around it, and mine is a faith in my fellow man. Theirs is a land of hope and glory, and mine is the green field and the factory floor. Theirs are the skies all dark with bombers, and mine is the peace we knew between the wars. Call up the craftsmen, bring me the draftsman, build me a path from cradle to grave, and I'll give my consent to any government that does not deny a man a living wage. Go find the young men, never to fight again, and bring up the banners from the days gone by. Sweet moderation, heart of this nation, desert us not, we are between the wars. Desert us not, because we are between the wars.